Being punished sucks, unless you're into that sort of thing.
Oh, behave.
When I was a kid, my mum made me go back to the store and apologise for stealing a small wire-bound notebook with Garfield on the cover in front of the whole store. And while that event stayed with me for the rest of my life, it's nowhere as messed up or creative as some of the punishments in Greek mythology. And stick around for the last one, which is the most messed up. Welcome to the Mysteries of Mythology, the 7 worst punishments in Greek mythology. Prometheus, a titan known for his intelligence and love for mankind, dared to challenge the authority of the gods in a way no one else had. He stole fire from Mount Olympus and gave it to humanity. Fire wasn't just for roasting marshmallows or Sunday barbecues. This powerful gift was a symbol of technology, knowledge, and civilization in general. To Zeus, taking fire was unforgivable. By giving fire to humanity, Prometheus had also given them more power. And with more power, they would be less dependent on the gods, maybe even bold enough to challenge the heavens. Like any powerful organization facing a threat, Zeus wanted to make an example of the offender.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Zeus's punishment was merciless. Prometheus was chained to a rock in the remote Caucasian mountains, his suffering put on display to anyone else tempted to defy the gods. Each day, an eagle, the bird sacred to Zeus, would fly down to Prometheus and tear into his flesh, feasting on his liver. By night, his liver would miraculously regenerate, only for the torment to begin again with the dawn. We have a lot to thank Prometheus for. Without him, we wouldn't be anything more than animals in the wilderness, unable to watch mythology channels or like and subscribe and turn on the notifications. In some versions of the myth, Prometheus's ordeal does find an end. Heracles, the legendary hero and son of Zeus, comes to his rescue. With Zeus's permission and a well-aimed arrow, Heracles slayed the eagle and shattered Prometheus's chains. We could say that this demonstrated that even divine punishment can go overturned by acts of courage and justice, but that wasn't true. Zeus needed something, which was the only time he did something nice. Sisyphus was no ordinary king. The guy was an asshole. Sisyphus was the first king of Ephyria, now known as Corinth. He was an intelligent king who had made his city prosperous. But he was also an evil tyrant who had seduced his niece.
Ew!
And would kill his visitors just to show his power. This violated the sacred hospitality tradition, xenia, and greatly angered Zeus. But it wasn't enough for Sisyphus to receive divine punishment just yet. One day, like many other days, Zeus was being a horn dog. He had kidnapped the nymph Aegina and carried her away in the form of a giant eagle. Aegina's father, the river god Sisyphus, followed their trail to Ephyria, the kingdom of Sisyphus. There, in exchange for the god making a spring inside the city, Sisyphus told Sisyphus which way Zeus had taken his daughter. When Zeus found out he'd been ratted out, he was furious. He ordered the god of death, Thanatos, to take Sisyphus into the underworld and chain him there so as not to make any more trouble. But there, ever cunning, Sisyphus tricked the god of death by asking Thanatos to show him how to use the chains. As soon as Thanatos put the chains around himself, Sisyphus closed the locks, trapping the god and running back to the land of the living. With death incapacitated, no one could die, throwing the natural order into chaos. When Ares, the god of war, finally freed Thanatos, Sisyphus wasn't done with his scheming. Knowing that the gods would eventually return for him, he devised a plan. On his deathbed, he told his wife not to perform the proper burial rites. When he arrived in the underworld, he complained to Persephone, the queen of the dead, about his neglectful wife, who hadn't performed the proper rituals and was allowed to return to the land of the living to set things right. The gods, however, do not suffer fools or con men lightly. Sisyphus was dragged back to the underworld by Hermes, and condemned to a punishment as cruel as his crimes. He was tasked with pushing a massive boulder up a steep hill, but just as the boulder neared the top, it would roll back down, forcing Sisyphus to begin again. This cycle of endless, pointless effort became his eternal fate. Tantalus was a king and a demigod son of Zeus, but the same could be said for nearly a tenth of Greece at the time. He was a figure of great privilege and favour with the gods. So much so did he piss off the god of Olympus that there was not one, but two stories why he received eternal punishment. The first version of the stories was that Tantalus was invited to the divine realm on Mount Olympus, where he dined with the gods themselves. While there, he stole ambrosia and nectar, the sacred food and drink of the gods, and shared them with mortals, violating the boundaries between the divine and human. Zeus, not only the god of thunder, sky and lightning, but also hospitality, was infuriated, leading to Tantalus's eternal punishment. But in the second version of the stories, it wasn't sticky fingers that led to a life of eternal torment. In this version, Tantalus was hosting a dinner and thought the best way to honour the gods was to boil and offer his son, Pelops, for dinner.
The other weight meat!
Seeing that the main course was a human, the gods refused to eat, except that is Demeter, who was distracted by the absence of her daughter Persephone, now made to live in the underworld 6 months of the year. Absent-mindedly, she eats the shoulder of Potiphar's Pelops. The gods, enraged by what Tantalus has done, condemn him to an eternity in Tartarus, the darkest depths of the underworld. There, he was placed in a pool of crystal clear water, with the branches of a fruit tree hanging just above him. But every time Tantalus bent down to drink, the water would recede beyond his reach. Whenever he stretched up to grasp the fruit, the branches would lift just out of range. Forever hungry and thirsty, Tantalus was trapped, longing for what he could never have. If the king's name sounds familiar, it's where we get the term tantalizing, tempted by something forever out of reach. Ixion was the king of Lapiths, known for rearing some of the finest horses in Greece. He was married to Dia, daughter of Dionysus, to whom he had promised a valuable present as a bride price. But Ixion didn't give anything to his father-in-law, so Dionysus decided to take the bride price instead of waiting for it to be given, and punish him by stealing some of his prized horses. Ixion found out about this but hid his resentment and invited his father-in-law to a feast. Shortly after Dionysus arrived, Ixion pushed him into a bed of burning coals and wood. Soon after, Ixion went mad and lost his throne. By breaking Xenia, he broke the sacred duty of hospitality, as well as breaking one of the other most sacred tenets, not to kill your family. Ixion visited the neighbourhood princes seeking the purification ritual, but the princes were so offended by what he had done, they refused. After years of suffering, Ixion asked the gods for forgiveness. Despite the unforgivable act, Zeus, in an unusual gesture of mercy, invited Ixion to dine on Mount Olympus. It was a chance for redemption, but Ixion messed it up big time. During his time amongst the gods, Ixion developed an obsession with Hera, Zeus's wife. His lust compelled him to make advances towards the queen of the gods, betraying Zeus's trust and offending Hera. To catch Ixion in the act, Zeus created a cloud in Hera's likeness, which became known as Nephili. Ixion, deceived by the illusion, acted on his desires and did the bedroom rodeo with the cloud, and from their union came the centaurs. Why Zeus gave a cloud the ability to give birth is still a mystery.
Well, you go out there and you just give 110%.
Zeus cast Ixion out of Olympus and condemned him to an eternity of torment in the underworld. After striking him with a couple of bolts of thunder, he was bound to a fiery spinning wheel that rolled endlessly through the abyss of Tartarus. Weddings are supposed to be about the love of two people, unity, and happily ever after, but not in this story. This wedding didn't have love or two people, it had 100. It all started with a feud between King Danaids, the king of Libya, and his twin brother, Aegyptus, the king of Egypt. Aegyptus commanded that Danaids' 50 daughters marry his 50 sons, but Danaids refused because incest, and he and his 50 daughters fled to the land of Argos. The people of Argos welcomed Danaids and his daughters, and Danaids eventually became king. But Aegyptus wasn't going to let his brother and his daughters go. He arrived in Argos, demanding that Danaids' daughters marry his sons. If Danaids refused the marriages, war was almost certain for the Argives, the people of Argos. If he agreed to the marriages, his daughters' husbands would eventually claim his throne. So Danaids agreed reluctantly, and by agreed, I mean he told his daughters to go ahead with the weddings, but secretly ordered them to murder their new husbands on their wedding night. 49 of the Danaids obeyed their father. Only one, Hypernistra, refused. She spared her husband Lycaeus because he respected her wishes to remain a virgin. On the night of the wedding, 49 grooms were slain in cold blood. Hypernistra's mercy eventually led to her reunion with Lycaeus, but the other Danaids, well, they weren't so lucky. Following their death, they were condemned to the deepest and darkest part of the underworld, Tartarus. There they were ordered to fill a bath of water all day and all night. But they were given jars filled with holes like sieves, meaning that they would never be able to complete their task. Eating livers seems to be a common punishment in Greek mythology. Tityus was a giant born of the union between Zeus and Elara, one of Zeus's many infidelities. Tityus was actually favoured by the gods, but things were going to turn south pretty fast. While wandering the lands of Delphi, he encountered Leto, the mother of Apollo and Artemis. And if you know anything about Apollo and Artemis, you know not to mess with these two. In some versions of the myth, it was Hera, angered by her husband's infidelity, that worked up Tityus, leading to the rape of Leto. This wasn't only a violation of Leto's dignity, but also a direct insult to the gods themselves, particularly her children. Apollo slew the giant with a volley of arrows and the blade of his golden sword. But that wasn't the end of the punishment. His massive body was stretched across Tartarus, and each day 2 vultures descended upon him, tearing into his liver and feasting on his flesh. Like Prometheus, each night his body would regenerate, only for the cycle to repeat with the dawn. We've now arrived at the last and, in my opinion, the most messed up of punishments. King Minos of Crete was a ruler blessed by the gods. He was the son of Zeus, yes, another son of Zeus, and his father helped him with much of his kingship. It all started when Minos promised to sacrifice a magnificent bull to Poseidon, the god of the sea, as a show of gratitude and respect. Poseidon accepted the promise and even sent Minos a dazzling white bull from the depths of the ocean. But when Minos saw how beautiful the bull was, he changed his mind. Instead of offering it to Poseidon, he kept the animal for himself and sacrificed the lesser bull in its place. Poseidon wasn't fooled, he was pissed. Instead of punishing Minos directly, the god took a far more twisted approach. He cursed Minos' wife, Persephone, with an uncontrollable desire for the white bull. Desperate, Persephone turned to Daedalus, the brilliant inventor and craftsman, for help. Daedalus, under the order of his queen, built a hollow wooden cow, so lifelike it could fool the bull. Persephone hid inside the bull and approached the bull sent by Poseidon. The bull did what bulls do, and Persephone became pregnant. This weird human-bull union led to the birth of the Minotaur, the half-human, half-bull monster. For whatever reason, Minos was unable to kill the Minotaur, so hid it in a labyrinth built by the master craftsman Daedalus. a constant reminder of his offence to the gods. The punishment of Greek gods were pretty messed up, and we've only touched on some of the stories. Some of their victims perhaps deserved their punishment, while the others were the result of a divine tantrum. What about you? Do you have any thoughts about the punishment of Greek gods? And if you want to watch a full video on one of the most famous punishments, watch this next video.